Director Brader?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. You
Morning.
look okay. Feel okay?
I feel okay, thank you. Sorry I can't be there in person, but definitely do not want to spread my germs.
Okay.
That's commitment to put a suit on to do it remotely.
I do what I can.
I don't even do that.
Okay.
Glad you made that comment.
Yeah. So was the meeting properly noticed under the Open Meetings Act, Director Brader?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the first item of business today, which I will call before public comment, is consideration of the meeting minutes from the April 28, 2023 meeting.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the Michigan Board of State Canvassers held on April 28th, 2023.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved? Aye. Or,
Aye.
aye, whoops, yeah. All right, so we now have time for public comment, and we will allow 3 minutes. I believe that Mr. Gallant has asked to speak. Mr. Gallant, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All righty.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. This is James Gallant, Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition. These are my opinions. It appears that all constitutional amendments in Michigan since 1980 should be invalidated by the Supreme Court because it appears the random sampling policy was approved in direct contradiction to Article 7, to Section 7 of the Michigan Constitution. Because the minutes, your minutes from 1980, which I received from Adam Fakasi, states that there was 3 canvassers that day. Not only was there 3 canvassers, then that makes a majority of one party, but also that the other canvasser seat was vacant. So the Constitution says you shall have 2 appointed from each party, and there shall be no majority on any canvassing board. And this is happening all across the state, and this is how the elections are being rigged in Michigan by the canvassing boards, including yourself. So, let me see. Now, also, it was wholly inappropriate for you to request that the Bureau of Elections establish a work group to help you with this random sampling process policy, because under Robert's Rules of Order, which Michael Brady, Director of Legal Services for the Department of State, has stated that Robert's Rules of Order is required under the Constitution. So what you should have done was establish yourself an ad hoc committee, which then you could appoint people outside of your board. And then you could appoint everybody that Jonathan Brader is going to appoint. But I believe that this process was created like this to willfully circumvent the Open Meetings Act. Because now that work group, I want minutes. I want to join. I want to participate in that meeting. I want public comment at that work group, because you would have had to do that if it's your ad hoc committee. But you did this, because you didn't want to go with the Open Meetings Act, and then they're all doing it in a closed session. Now, I believe I ask you to please refer these issues formally to Attorney General Dana Nessel for investigation and possible criminal prosecution for elections fraud and elections misinformation and disinformation, including with the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. They're doing the same thing. And at the canvassing board in Marquette last week, our special election was certified with 2 canvassers there, and somebody sitting in there, they didn't even say who it was. He didn't get the oath of office. In Lansing, in Ingham County, they did the oath of office to 2 more canvassers at the beginning of the meeting last year, and they had 6 canvassers. And in Elder County, the clerk testified that they are required to follow your manual for canvassing boards.
Mr. Gallant, thank you for your input and your interest, and I expect we'll hear from you again next month. The next item on the agenda is consideration of the certification of changes to the Dominion voting system. Can you explain this? Are we going to hear from Director Brader? Okay, Director Brader, will you please review this for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair Gurwitz. So I'll give you an overview of the issue. We also have some staff in the room who conducted the actual testing and review, who can provide more detailed answers if they're beyond my capacity. But this is a version change to the Dominion voting system. So this, as opposed to the changes that the board considered at the last meeting, which were de minimis changes, small modifications, this is a version upgrade, which means that it required testing and certification by staff, and then will require board approval. So what we are recommending here is an upgrade to the Dominion voting system, which is used in 65 of our 83 counties, including Wayne County and Kent County. And this is the first major upgrade we've done in a couple of years. We didn't do one during the 21-22 cycle. So we are moving from the 5.5 series to version 5.17, which has several usability, functionality, technology, and security improvements compared to the previous version. As part of the process of getting the version approved, first the vendor has to go to a voting system test laboratory that has been certified by the National Institute of Standards and Technology and has been approved by the Election Assistance Commission to conduct thorough testing of all the components of the voting system. After that testing is complete, the vendor then needs to get approval from the Bipartisan Election Assistance Commission and have that equipment certified at the federal level. That's for approval by the EAC, which technically is not necessary for state use, but is something that we obviously look at when we're recommending something to you. So this version has gone through the process through the Voting System Test Laboratory and through the Election Assistance Commission process and has been approved. It was approved under the Voluntary Voting System Guidelines 1.0. I will note that the Election Assistance Commission is in the process of implementing a newer version, Voting System Guidelines 2.0. However, although those systems are now, those guidelines are now available for testing, it takes several years before the major vendors can actually get their versions updated and tested under those standards. So vendors are continuing to have their equipment tested and approved under Guidelines 1.0, and we're going to continue to do that until we have equipment that's available that meet the 2.0 guidelines. As part of the state process for testing, we spent 2 days, our security and standards team and the Bureau of Elections, along with representatives from Dominion Voting Systems, as well as Election Source, and several individuals from county and municipal clerks' offices in Michigan, going over the major components of the system. The major components are basically fall into 4 categories. One, there's the election management system. That is what the county uses on their county computer to program elections, to program the cards that are put into the tabulators that read ballots, as well as to receive the unofficial results and perform other functions. So that's kind of the brains of the system. The second component are the tabulators. So those are the basic tabulators that are used in most jurisdictions in the state, where they're basically scanners where voters take paper ballots and scan them through the tabulators. The third component is the high-speed scanner. And I should note that with the Dominion system, the tabulator is called the ICP, the Image Cast Precinct. The high-speed scanner is the Image Cast Central, or ICC. And that is the high-speed scanner that some larger jurisdictions will use to process absentee ballots. So if you go to Detroit or Grand Rapids or some of the other larger cities and townships, they will use those high-speed scanners because they're able to process a high number of absentee ballots more quickly. And then finally, there's the ICX, the Image Cast X, which is the ballot marking device, which is used, which any voter can use, but often voters with disabilities will use them because they have accessibility features. And those allow you to mark a ballot using accessibility features, which is then printed out, and then you scan that through the tabulator. So we tested all 4 of those components, and they're all part of the certified configuration of version 5.17. We used the standard protocols in testing, and we found that the components met all of those requirements. We used test data from past elections and test ballots and used all the necessary functions in terms of scanning the ballots on both the tabulators and the high-speed scanners, in terms of marking the ballots with the ImageCast X, and in terms of using the functions on the election management system, and all of the necessary requirements were fulfilled in terms of the way those ballots are programmed and marked and tabulated. A few things that I want to note for this upgrade that I think are particularly important things that will improve election administration in the Dominion jurisdictions. One is that this upgrade will allow jurisdictions to use the newer version of the tabulator, the ICP2, the ImageCast Precinct 2. This works better. I mean, the old tabulators work fine, but the ICP2, it's a better piece of equipment. It scans ballots faster, which is really especially important for jurisdictions, smaller or mid-sized jurisdictions that use a tabulator to process their absentee ballots and absent voter counting boards. With the older tabulators, it can take 10 or more seconds between ballots scanning them. And that time adds up when you're scanning hundreds or thousands of absentee ballots at the counting board. So the ICP2 scans them much faster and has some other just sort of minor upgrades that work better. Because this is a newer system, it operates on Windows Server 2019 with SQL 2019, and that provides better performance and security overall as software upgrades tend to do. When it comes to the ICX device, the ImageCast X accessibility device, there have been a number of upgrades that improve the functionality, voter privacy and security enhancements, as well as the accessibility of the device. In particular, I want to note that we have seen Dominion address some of the feedback we got from voters with disabilities and others using these devices. It makes it easier and possible for the voter to actually activate the privacy screen by themselves without assistance. That was one major piece of feedback we got. The navigation through the ballot when you're using the ballot marking device functionality to work through the ballot, to get audio playback, to move between screens, to see where you are in the ballot. There's a lot better functionality there. And so those are some major improvements from an accessibility standpoint that we wanted to see addressed and that were. And then also the ICX includes some improvements to address some functionality and security improvements that were identified as needed. So there's some things involving the way the cards are programmed and in terms of the ballot secrecy that have been improved as part of this upgrade. And then the last thing I just want to note is that this version, it's EAC certified. This does not include the use of modems and tabulators to send unofficial results. So modems have been used in the past with Dominion to, after the polls are closed, after the election is over, connect to then send the unofficial results from the tabulators, which are then sent to the county. Those are unofficial results. The actual results are reviewed at the canvassing board before everything is certified, and of course the paper ballots are retained. However, we have been in the process of phasing out modems used in tabulators as a best practice. So this version will not have those. We actually had already phased out the modems in the tabulators in Dominion prior to 2022, but this version also will not have that. There are other things that jurisdictions can do after the card has been taken out of the machine. They can then use a connection to send the unofficial results, for example, from a city or township computer. But this will not have the modem in the tabulator, as we have already moved forward with. So those are the main elements that we've seen improvements. But overall, this is a more modern system. It works better and it has usability and security enhancements. So overall, this is going to help all of our Dominion jurisdictions and voters in those jurisdictions out. And so we recommend that the board approve the certification of this upgrade.
Members, do we have questions?
I'll let Member Daunt go first.
You'll probably ask most of what I'm going to ask, so.
I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
Thank you, Director Brader. have just for kind of my clarification in my own mind, look, there's a lot of technical language in the memo that we received. And you touched on my first question of, just the difference between this and de minimis, and essentially this is just a more in-depth change, whereas de minimis, we're changing like a piece of it or a small piece of software that needs upgrading, correct? This is, and because of that, it requires a lot more in-depth review, testing, bipartisan review, et cetera. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Where, and you may have mentioned this while I was writing some of my questions, is this machinery used statewide, or are there only certain parts of the state where it's used? Like I noticed the testing was conducted with, I think it was portions of Wayne County, Brownstown Township, and I thought there was one other place, I don't have it pulled up right in front of me, but in City of Detroit, are there other areas that use this?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, Dominion is the most used system in our state. So Wayne County and Kent County are the two largest counties that use it. But it's also used in, I think, the entire Upper Peninsula, if I'm not mistaken. And then most of Northern Michigan uses Dominion, as well as various other counties across the state. I will say that not all of them use, it's usually only our larger metropolitan areas where you have cities or townships that use the high-speed scanners. So, Detroit, Grand Rapids, other large jurisdictions. But most of the jurisdictions in the state use Dominion equipment.
And so this change would apply to every area that uses Dominion equipment?
That's right, yes.
Director Brader, question for you. Was Lisa Postumus from Kent County invited to participate in the testing?
I am not sure. I don't believe so. The staff in the room, do they know?
So the question is, you had Wayne County and you had Detroit and you had Brownstown, but as you've already mentioned, Kent County is the other large player here. They were not included in any testing.
I don't believe they were for this round. If staff knows otherwise, please let me know. I mean, we generally, obviously try to have as many jurisdictions as we can involved. I think when we tested the HART system, I think we only had one county there as well, which is Livingston County. But in this case, I don't know for sure whether we did have Kent County invited. I will note that Kent County's election director did recently leave, and he's currently at Election Source. So that may have been a factor, but I'm not sure.
And this is used both election day and absentee processing, correct? Did I catch that?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
I have questions. Thank you, Director Brader, and actually thank you to the staff for the time to go through, make sure the certifications are done well, and to law. So obviously, the question I normally ask is how many counties utilize Dominion in the state of Michigan? I know we didn't really get into that, but I know that Adam will probably give me that answer. Or Director Brader, either.
Sorry, the question was how many counties?
How many counties?
65.
65. And I just want to reiterate and make sure I'm okay with make sure I'm understanding this, and I think I've said this at many meetings now, is that the county clerk is the entity that chooses the voting system that is used in their county by all of their municipalities.
That's correct.
Okay. So the first question is, upon approval of a certification, would these new improvements be implemented before the primary and/or general election of 2023?
23 or 24?
Oh, would it be 23 or would it be 24? That's what I'm asking.
I think that, because of the number of counties that need to be upgraded, it may depend on where you are in the state in terms of when you get the actual upgrade. So it won't be the case that every jurisdiction can be upgraded before, say, August 2023. I believe the goal, however, is to make sure that everything is upgraded before the presidential primary in 2024. If that's not possible, it is possible to have counties using different versions in the same election. We try to avoid it, but there's no real problem with it. But the goal would be to have everybody upgraded by the presidential primary.
So I did have a question that you were talking about the ICP2 units. That's not a high-speed tabulator, correct? That's just the new unit. It's a regular kind of essential speed. So it would let you, I just want to make sure that that's what that is. It's not a high-speed tabulator.
Right.
And I'm sorry, you know that I will pepper you with questions on these because I usually have these. So the other question, I appreciate, going through and reading the voter assistance that, I don't think most people realize. So most of us vote, we go into our voting booth, we mark off our ballot, we put it in the tabulator. But having, when the new systems came in 2016 and participating in the mock election here in Lansing, being able to actually see the voter assistance systems and what that really entails for a voter with I would say with disabilities, whether they're using the pictures that we've had in our reports, but to see the changes in that, to have an actual privacy screen, if you have to sit down and use a terminal instead of actually being able to fill in an oval or a rectangle, thank you, Verity, but I was interested to see that they actually have either it's going to print out in a standard ballot or a QR code that was actually readable by those machines. So once that voter votes, then those ballots are printed out, and then that ballot is what gets put into the tabulator, correct?
I think with the Dominion system, the ICX, what the ICX prints out is a barcode with the selections listed, as opposed to a full face ballot. But staff can correct me if that's wrong. I don't know if staff is in the room can clarify
Sorry,
that.
David. I want people to realize the reason I ask the question is just to demystify voting. Everyone thinks that everyone's voting experience is the same, but they are kind of different, so.
Yeah, with this version now, Dominion can also do a full-face ballot. It would require the purchase of a different printer because the current printer cannot duplex the size of a Michigan ballot, but they can have the option. The current one does the QR code on the ballot with the selections listed, and then the other one would do a full-face ballot with their selections marked on, what would essentially look like any other ballot in the ballot bin. Yep.
No, I appreciate, it's just those simple changes that make voting more accessible, which it should be.
Yep.
Everyone should have the ability and have that access to the ballot. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that at least, that Dominion's looking at that. Now, the question I have is, are these features that are upgraded for voters with need more accessibility to the ballot, do we believe that we'll see those, see upgraded features from ES&S and Heart Verity?
We do talk to the vendors about changes that they're making to the accessible systems, with our goal being to keep that dialogue going and keep enhancing these as we go forward.
Do you see us having to do once we approve the 5.7 system, 5.17 systems, with going to that Windows 10, you don't feel that we're going to have to do another upgrade such as that, a system upgrade like that?
I don't believe so, no.
And sorry, I highlighted things on here. And I appreciate Madam Chair and my fellow board members for allowing me to kind of ask these questions. Can you, obviously, one of the things that you're testing is people who, like for adjudication of ballots, can either you, Director Brader, or for you, David, can you kind of explain that process? Obviously, we test it for these tabulators, but can you kind of go over what that process really is?
I'll defer to Director Brader if he wants to.
Well, let me just generally say what it is, and then Dave can definitely can give you better detail on what the process actually entails. But basically, that is the same thing that is done. It can be done on paper or with software, where you're having election workers look at ballots that include where a voter has possibly made an error in determining whether or not that ballot should be counted. Or whether a particular vote in a race should be counted. So if a voter has made it, a possible overvote, so they've selected too many candidates in a race, but it's possible that the reason they did that is because they had like a pen rest or a stray mark that went through one of the bubbles. That's the type of thing where either, manually by just duplicating the ballot and creating another ballot for them, or through software, you can determine whether that ballot should be counted. So that's basically what the software is used for in lieu of just completing a second ballot for that voter. But Dave, if you want to add any details, please feel free.
Yeah, I think Director Brader did a good job of explaining that. They have put other enhancements in there as far as when you're adjudicating, you can filter for certain criteria, like you mentioned, the overvote or whatever, which highlights those areas on the ballot. You can't change any areas other than those areas that you're working on. And there is a detailed log about who made the change, when it was made. All that type of stuff is recorded in reports and in audit logs in the software.
I appreciate that part of I do. And I did notice, obviously, and I know Director Brader, you touched on it, that there was no testing because the Democracy Suite 5.1 is no elect transmission, so no modem transmission.
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, the system itself. So I did notice going through the testing certification documentation you gave to us that they need, that Dominion will schedule a day to upgrade systems. Like, is there further testing that needs to be had once we certify this system?
No, we will do other testing like Jonathan mentioned about the accessibility groups. Will continue to, we have Dave Foster and I in the office go out and interact with groups and in different conferences and different events that they have where we take all the VATs out and demonstrate them. So we will continue to take these out and get feedback on the Dominion as well as all the other systems to kind of keep that dialogue going and keep making them better for the voters.
I appreciate it. I mean, I know that staff does, I know staff has that communication, even talking with my own local clerk. I'm almost done, I apologize. I noticed that, under legal requirements, yes, all of this new equipment will have audit logs.
Correct.
That it will, that votes cannot be produced until polls are closed, standard.
That's correct.
Under that, the last one, this is I have one further one, but that's just general. But my next one is about language. So we have Spanish and we have Bengali.
Correct.
Is there any word or any need of any other languages that we need to adopt or that our systems need to adopt in the state of Michigan?
I will defer to our legal people if they know of any impending additional languages.
And how does that happen, though?
It has a
What's the-
standard set of languages that it supports, and Bengali is one of them. So obviously, if the language we adopt is one of those, it's pretty seamless. I believe even if it's not a supported language, there's still things that can be done. It just takes a little more effort with recordings and stuff to accomplish that.
So are those, you said you had to talk to legal, so is there like a legal means that has to happen? I'm just curious about the process
I
now.
don't know if Adam can.
I can, well, let me take a crack at it. So
Sorry.
Dominion is capable of supporting additional languages besides Spanish and Bengali. Those are listed here because those are languages which some jurisdictions in Michigan must provide ballots and the audio version of that on an accessible device. Those are the ones that are required in Michigan. However, we have had jurisdictions go beyond those requirements. For example, Dearborn and Hamtramck provided Arabic ballots and audio support. And we worked with, and the jurisdictions worked with Dominion to support that in 2022. So if either state law or federal law were to change to require more languages to be provided, or if jurisdictions on their own, made the determination that they should provide ballots and other materials in additional languages, Dominion can do that. And they support other jurisdictions, like I believe like Chicago, Cook County, that provide things in lots of different languages. So the Dominion can definitely support that. It's just a question of, for that specific election, making sure that the equipment is programmed to provide for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I believe that is all my comments on this. Thank you.
You should not apologize, because we need you to be asking these questions. And I appreciate the fact that you have a greater familiarity with the technical aspects of this. Does anybody else have another question?
Just a very quick question. Maybe this goes to Director Brader. You have a beautiful framework here that you've laid out, right? So you have lots of documents and they look great, and they have all the checklists, and you've got comments made where appropriate. After we go through an election cycle, is this same framework used to kind of evaluate how the election went? Does this ever get revisited, or was this just a test that certification gets put in a file? I'm not sure I'm asking that clearly enough.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think that we take this exact test list and retest equipment ourselves in sort of a recertification testing, but some of these things are done as part of pre-election testing by jurisdictions before every election when they do a ballot testing. And then, it may be the case that in canvasses or in audits, some of these procedures are also reviewed to make sure they were done. But we don't ever run the entire certification checklist just as a matter of course after initial approval.
Okay, thank you.
Director Brader, when was the last time that the Dominion software was certified without just the de minimis changes that we have approved in the past?
I don't know the exact date. The staff in the room know the answer to that question.
Yeah. Mr. Fracassi looks like he wants to answer that
Yes,
question.
I do. It was certified on May 23rd of 2019 was the last system
Thank you.
certification.
Any other questions from the members?
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair.
Well, let's see if,
Let's
do we have any public comment?
Sorry.
I will note that we did have an email
Yes, I
from,
have public comment, please, Madam Chair. Public comment, please.
okay, Mr. Gallant, you have,
Under my accommodation, under the ADA, I'm supposed to get public comment on every agenda item as the administrative rules, and I would
All
ask
right.
that that happen, Speaker.
okay, Mr. Gallant, you have your, I'm sorry. You have
My what?
3 minutes.
By 3 minutes? Okay.
We're being generous.
Let me guess. Okay, it's James Gallant, Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition. These are my opinions. Well, it just seemed odd that did he just say that the last time the Dominion machines were certified in 10 years ago? And I guess that was what it sounded like. And, I believe, and according to Michael Brady, the Director of Legal Services for the Department of State, given the instructions to Secretary of State Benson when she convened the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, said you must follow Robert's Rules of Order unconditionally under Constitution. And you didn't appoint an agenda. You didn't even approve an agenda today, which Robert's Rules requires that. It says a proposed agenda is not binding until it's approved by a majority at the meeting. Okay. Now you're doing business. You did business before public comment. I had you completely disenfranchised me from comment on the minutes. You approved the minutes before public comment. So you're denying people their freedom of speech. I would ask that you refer the issues that I've been bringing to you for the last year to the Attorney General specifically. I will write a new little list of things that I've been bringing and formally request that the Attorney General investigate these issues and for possible criminal violations, like I said, criminal activity. And it appears that, I mean, I just saw, I believe it's in this conversation, right? Where the guy that was testifying before you deferred to legal, and then John says, oh, I'll take that. Well, I've already contacted the Michigan Bar Association saying that Jonathan Brader is practicing on unauthorized practice of law in Michigan. He just was deferred for legal, and yeah, he's a lawyer, I'm assuming, but I mean, that's a JD, that's an Esquire, right? Because it's my understanding he's not, what do you call that? Approved to practice law in Michigan under the Michigan Bar. So why is he being deferred legal questions to him? And then all of a sudden, yeah, this is great. I think he's making it up. And I believe that this thing about the work group is a direct contradiction to circumvent the Open Meetings Act. That you just don't have open meetings. They're going to be private. It's going to be this. You're going to go this. And then you, Madam Chair, I believe is unbecoming of a member of the Bar Association for you to preside over this meeting the way that you are without actually asking the Attorney General for clarification. And I will be submitting that to the Attorney Grievance Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gallant. And I will note that thank you, Mr. Gallant. We also had an email from somebody, pro-health mom, urging us not to certify Dominion. So I would just note that for the record.
Madam Chair, I have one comment.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure that I'm correct, and I know that either Director Brader or Mr. Fracassi can answer that. All of the voting system information is available on the Michigan Secretary of State website, correct? And that would be under Board of Canvassers, or is that under elections? I think it's under elections.
It's under elections generally. There on the department's website, there's a section on the website that talks about all of the voting equipment and the certification, and has the dates and everything on our website. And I'll also note that the Election Assistance Commission on their website, they also have a large number of documents about testing equipment and similar to what the board has presented today. They have similar documents on their website as well for the equipment broken down state by state.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion, if that's okay.
Is there any other public comment other than Mr. Gallant? Okay. We have none.
Madam Chair, I move that the board certify the Dominion Democracy Suite 5.17 voting system for use in the state of Michigan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is approved. The next item on our agenda, the item that had been our agenda, a consideration of the form of a petition of a new party has been withdrawn. Is that correct, Mr. Fracassi?
Yes, so there were just changes that needed to be made to the petition itself, and just because of time. So I am assuming it will be back at a future meeting.
Thank you. Next item, any other business to present to the board?
Adam, could you give an update on the work group?
Sure. So at the last meeting, the board, as you guys are aware, or as the board is aware, the board voted to do a work group. So we have started the scheduling process for an additional work group, and the point of it is just to examine the first meeting is just to examine the pieces of the law and make a recommendation to the full board. So just to be clear, this group is not going to be making decisions. It has to come to the full board, and we will be presenting something to the full board for approval or rejection, however the board would like to proceed with the recommendations. We have sent out potential dates and times and are in the process of scheduling. So we will, when we know more, we'll schedule a meeting and keep you updated when we know more.
Thank you. This is what we asked for at our last meeting so that we can receive the assistance of practitioners in determining the best way to fulfill our responsibility. And we're hoping as well that we will be looking at ways to incorporate technology into the process as it becomes available so that we can perform our functions and you can perform your functions in the most up-to-date and best and most effective way possible. So thank you for helping us with that.
Public comment, please.
No, we've
Chair,
heard from you,
public comment, please.
Mr. Gallant. You addressed this issue already in your initial comments, and so I think that we understand what your position is. Any other business? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.